Thank you. And once again, apology for me moving the meeting, later. I'm in Europe, so I also realized that both from timing as well as some others, it overlap. So my apology again, and also thank you, Rafael, for adjusting as well as leading the meeting, last week. So I think that we can take a request and edit. Okay. All right. So I think we can go ahead and start. So we have some agendas that I've shared with the group, but let me share again. Of course, like this agenda is just for guidance. Like if there's anything else that we want to talk about, as well as especially time allows, so I can definitely talk about it. Let me know if you guys see the post. So for today, I believe the scope that we have to talk about is growth scope. And of course, we're going to also talk about some of the ABC responsibility. I have checked few of some of the edits that are going to come up. Unfortunately, I didn't get time to review all, so we can also talk about those as well as some of the questions regarding like advisors, especially related to growth. Like, I think we can talk about it, and especially since our name is called growth CVC or ABC, I think it also makes sense that we also have some opinions about space growth as well. All right. The meeting summary. Okay. Yeah. All right. So I think we can go ahead and start. So for this, I have some like statements or points, as well as some points for both me and Rafael to think about, because I don't think that we have the answers per se. So I think that it's important to look at, for example, if you look at from the growth, especially scope-wise, like Maker has grown a lot, right? Like especially if you compare the early days when there's not even a thing called DeFi, and then when there's only a single collateral, ETH as collateral, like it has grown a lot. And we also have a lot of real assets and others. And then it's also listed in, and then also used, much more than before, right? Because I still remember the time that Maker was only listed, and Maker DAI was only listed in the HitBTC, and then now it's, for example, available on Coinbase, Binance, as well as some other payments and exchanges. But especially, I think in terms of marketing, there have been, as well as like major partnership, there have been a lot of questions about where the growth scope, as well as like its business and marketing should go. So I think some of the questions for, I would say, start with maybe in the Rafael is also like, what areas can Maker improve on and then grow more on? So maybe Rafael, you can also share some thoughts to it as well.
I mean, for me, it's basically gaining mind share, like just reminding people that DAI is still like the number one decentralized stablecoin, and even though we have a large percentage of our value backed by USDC, this is not the entire story, and just promote the DAI brand and usage. That's, I think, is for me the most important aspect.
Yeah, I think that has been something that a lot of, I think, community members have brought on, is also the question of branding. And I do agree that that's also part that we should definitely work on. I would say that the new, well, especially after like adjusting to Endgame, I think branding has been a big portion of it. We also seen, for example, website change, and I also heard that there's the initiative to change the name for Maker and DAI potentially as well, right? So I do think it'll be a big part. But of course, like I'll say that crypto market and also crypto marketing has been very interesting, and at least from the experience, I feel like the Maker has been always trying to not talk about speculation part, right? Like if you think about it, a lot of like marketing that has a lot of like followers tend to be more focused on speculation side, but of course that's not the part that especially for Maker branding wants to be associated with. So I'm also kind of excited to see how it goes, but and so in the future maybe we can also have somebody from the initiative that are going on, or if is there anybody from Growth CU here, like former Growth CU?
I'm here.
Yeah, Mariano is here. So maybe would it be okay if you can also maybe share some thoughts to, especially in terms of like growth scope, like how you see. I know that your focus has been on the branding, branding and marketing side to talk about how you can like expand, as well as like especially in regard to let's say growth, in terms of expansion, like how you see it can synergize or help.
Can you repeat the question, too?
Yeah, sorry, my question was a bit long, but to keep it short, can you just share some of the like thoughts to how branding as well as like marketing should progress for Maker, like how we should move forward?
Yeah, this is just, some of the ideas that we were discussing, and I would like to have an approach very similar to grant structures for decentralizing the growth and not to keep just a single unit in charge of that. And the idea is to have a formal structure in the scope, the accessibility scope, and how these grants are structured. Right. One of the idea that I'm developing is how can we separate the actual research and the grant for growth, separating that from the funding, right? Let's say, for example, that we have the accessibility scope facilitator proposing the grant, doing the research, and structuring the grants, the milestones, the goals and objectives, and that kind of things, right? And then, let's say one of the committees, the CVC or even growth committee, could approve or reject that grant proposal, and also propose the funding for that. So the idea here again is to separate the funding from the actual research on the proposal. That could be one thing, and that could have a marketplace where other community members or even companies or ecosystem actor could engage and apply to that. Ideally, in that way, you can centralize and also have visibility and transparency of all the things that are related. How not only the DAO can grow, but also other sub-DAOs too.
Okay, sounds good. It's actually an interesting point because I guess my question was a little bit different, but that's also a really good point. And then, Rafael, maybe you can correct me, but so for the recommendation, well, not the recommendation, but so some of the strategy, what I understood last time, because I know you led the meeting, last time, so maybe it changed, but is it that we can provide some of the general guidance? So I saw the comment basically saying that we cannot be like, hey, on the cloud, let's say like 3.1, like let's change this to this. Like we're not allowed to do that, right? So, but we can give a general direction. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's my understanding too. So I think we can be very specific with regards to the advisory council, but otherwise, language is really suggested by the advisors then, and then voted on by delegates. So we get very specific with advisors, but otherwise we just have our general outlook, like where we can see, like I think the agenda that you propose is really good in that regard, that it's just broad strokes, where can Maker grow, how can the growth scope support that, and then leave the details of the implementation to the advisors.
Yeah, and I think that it actually naturally, and Mariano, thanks so much for your comment. I think it actually transitioned really nicely into the next kind of topic that we want to talk about, which is also related to the scope, right? So growth scope, which is like, okay, so one of the things you mentioned is, okay, how can we also have a section about like let's say grant or research regarding marketing? So I can imagine, yes, there can be like grant for marketing, and then of course there might be also advisor, right? And I think that we are already seeing some applications. I'm not sure what it's for, like growth itself, but maybe it's related. But okay, and the true name had a question about new branding. Yeah, I think it's already been developed, but I don't think there's a specific form that maker decide to pay yet. I think it's just right now, basically, Growth CEO kind of working on it. That's kind of my understanding, but somebody can correct me if I'm wrong. But continued days like, so we also got a lot of, I'll say, questions both from Rune as well as others about like, okay, how should we think about advisor? And at least from Mike's like, and this is something that I think Raphael and I will also should discuss with our also ABC, which is that. So if I go to this point about like ABC, responsibility about designing process. So I'm just reading from the agenda, but basically it says designing process that the facilitators use to find the advisory council members and give them projects. Also, determine through the governance strategies how delegates will vote on the onboarding proposals of the advisory council members that are the facilities make, right? Now, of course, I had a question about how detailed should the process be, but I think it's kind of fair that from the ABC, we can give some criteria, especially some of the criteria that I think kind of aligns with Growth ABC. And I think that one of the key criteria that I can at least this is my view, and then Rafael can disagree, and then we can talk more about it, which is that experts should know the field they can help. So, for example, if it's let's say relate to growth scope, then it's clear that a team or let's say individual that wants to be an advisor should know about, for example, whether it's in the marketing field or in business development field, right? Like we cannot, for example, this is an extreme example, but we cannot, for example, have a somebody that doesn't know about like marketing or business, but let's say they're just a university student, say that okay, like we know how like maker can grow. I think that at least based on criteria, I think we can make a sound point that maybe this is not the path that can be, let's say they would tie together. Yeah, so I would say that maybe there can be, one of the criteria where like they need to show like how their work is related to the scope. Rafael, what's your thought? I mean, of course, like we have one as our thought, but I was thinking like from the advisor, like in terms of especially in the criteria, like because we are not supposed like ABCs are not the ones that invite advisors anywhere, right? So it will be let's say facilitators that try to get them. But I was thinking that if the process is facilitators can, for example, bring forth, or let's say that there are others that apply and the facilitators review and then let's say submit to votes. I think that from our ABC side, it's like we should check whether that potential advisor does have the expertise to help the scope. I think that's pretty fair, and also it's in line with the growth.
Yeah, I think for me, somebody who actually has experience, the best would be like hands-on experience, like growing protocols and DeFi across multiple chains would be amazing. And like I don't think there are that many people out there, but like if we can get some of those people to advise, that would be really amazing.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I guess it's also true that maker, especially the environment, is very specific. So it's possible that it might be difficult to find an advisor who might be expert. But at the same time, like I also don't think that it's maker's job to educate in the potential advisors, like using maker's resources, right? So actually, Vigilant made a good point above. So let me just read it, especially for those who are watching the recording. Vigilant said, facilitators just follow a process set by ABCs to bring on advisors. So I would say that we can basically set a process and facilitators kind of follow it, right? So of course there are two parts to it. So one is what kind of process do we want to set, and then also what kind of strategy that we want to set for ABCs, so that delegates can vote. of course, we cannot make for specific, let's say, applicant, but I believe that we're supposed to make it for kind of general, right? But I think that how we talk about was the kind of criteria side, which is like, let's say that facilitators, followed our process and actually brought on some of the applicants, how our like delegates should vote, right? So I think that to kind of summarize, so one of them is that, okay, somebody that's kind of expertise in such domain. Okay, but I have another kind of question for you, Rafael, is that so in the case, for example, like they want to, let's say, negotiate and those things, then who do they kind of negotiate with in terms of like how much time they should spend and how much money they should get? I know there's a budget for it that I saw, but I don't think it's like budget is specific to each advisor, right? And it's possible that some advisors want to come in more time, some might want to just be part-time. So do you have any thoughts to it as well?
I think that's a very interesting point and a discussion that needs to be ongoing. So we have parts of the former DLOs and work proposals in the scopes, I think, as Vigilant pointed out, but I don't think we have like a process for instance, comparing like a tender process, right? Like where we can really compare multiple options and who would even compare it and that kind of thing. So that's definitely something we should look into. But I haven't seen any language to that in that regard, at least from my point of view, but maybe somebody else has seen something more specific about how this is handled.
It's not so clear. I think maybe that can be part of the process. I'm not sure whether they will be part of the criteria, but actually, Mariana, do you want to say something? Or I saw you unmuted.
No.
No, okay, sounds good. Yeah, I mean, so for this discussion, it's more about. Okay, Bridget also said, I think the facilitators have to compare options, but we can provide the criteria for facilitators to compare on. Yes, I think that's a very good point. So I think that some of the criteria that we can just talk about is object. And then, so even before that, I actually had this question, and then I'm actually curious about some of the delegates' thought as well as, Rafael, your thought as well, which is that if, for example, this is going back to growth scope, let's say somebody's really good at marketing. Let's say like they know crypto marketing very well, they know DeFi marketing, like they know MakerDAO like inside out. Should they be advisor or should they just be ecosystem actor or like sub-DAO, Like, because for me, it's like, okay, if they can really help, then does it make sense to basically have to require them to be like, let's say advisor? Like, can they just apply to be like other parts that are more active and direct? So I was just kind of thinking like, so how do you really kind of separate those, right? So is it like advisor more for, let's say, entities they know about know how to help, but they cannot help full time? So is there like part-time there for their advisor, or is it that like, if somebody is really good, then I think it might make more sense to be basically, for example, almost hired by DAO, right? Instead of like being in a part-time advisor. So I just had a kind of interesting thought about that. Do we know kind of answers to it? Yeah, so I agree with Code Knight that yeah, as well as Frontier Research. So of course, like for each scope, it'll be different, right? But I was thinking, like for example, for growth, I also saw the part, for example, I think there's a new applicant called Slate. It seems, I mean, hopefully, I mean, we'll see more information hopefully about them. Like they haven't shared publicly, I don't think yet. But because I was thinking like if they're like, for example, expertise is in, let's say, growth and especially focusing Asia, well then like shouldn't they just, for example, and then I saw that they also apply for equals actor, right? So is it like what's the real line between them, right? So
I mean, I think that there's like multiple paths that this could be delineated, and I think like one is, for instance, between like marketing person and marketing agency. I think that happens quite often, and for me, the advisor would be like the marketing person who, like in a traditional corporation, would like own the marketing and guide the agencies, and then the agencies would be kind of the executives, but also ones that kind of come up with multiple ideas and then the actual execution.
okay. Yeah, I mean, I think it's just something to think about because especially in practice, and especially if there's a big difference between rewards, I think that we might see, for example, like even if somebody's very qualified to be advisor, if, for example, the like reward for them is capped for certain reasons or process, I think it's very like at least economically speaking, it makes sense for them to go toward let's say ecosystem actor or apply for others, right? So I think that maybe we can also think about some of the process about how to separate it. And maybe the difference is not that much. Maybe it's just up to them to apply and they go through different process, you know. And then we can also talk about like what are some of the difference and some of the, well, because I saw like I think Paul and I said that they have some extra powers. Maybe we can also look at whether that's also true. Actually talking about it, like I know that I don't like to give homework, but Paul and I like if you have time, like can you maybe on the like Growth CVC forum, just kind of point out like what are some extra power that will have like compared to if they're ecosystem sector. But yes, I know I'm not supposed to micromanage you, so it's not micromanaging. It's just like that'll be nice. I think that one is fine. But let me know if I'm not supposed to do that. All right. So continue with that. Some other criteria. So I think that we should talk about criteria first, and then let's go back to process. Like, is that okay, Rafael? I know that we're supposed to talk about process first and talk about criteria, but I think right now a lot of content is on the criteria side, and then like especially following like what it makes sense for you say especially Growth CVC or ABC. All right. Well, I'll take that as it's okay. All right. So we talk about some of the few things. Other criteria that I kind of think about from the growth ABC is like, okay, so if our focus for growth, especially, is to try to expand, let's say, users and die supply and others. And in terms of, let's say, those budgets, which is also going back to what Mariana asked about, let's say, like budgets for research and like, grants for research. I think it's very crucial for us to do as much research as possible that's allowed within the constitution, well, not constitution anymore, alignment, to try to get much clarity as possible, right? Because I think that, at least from my perspective, is that just because we are growth ABC doesn't mean that we have to stamp yes to every proposal and every grant, especially, right? Because you can imagine that resource is finite. So from the healthy growth side, especially, it's important to make sure that whatever the money is spent is at least trying to be reviewed as well as viewed. Now, of course, there's a limited some of the restrictions, but I think that within those restrictions, at least my view is that ABC should kind of look into it. That also applies for example, advisor as well. So if, for example, they're advisors, they want to be part of the process, and then one of the criteria definitely is like they should be willing to answer a lot of like several questions that at least the community is willing to ask, right? Like, of course, it doesn't mean that the community should spam them with questions, but if there are like crucial questions that haven't been addressed, or especially that can like undermine maker in both short and long term, like I think it's kind of fair that at least from the voting side, it makes sense to kind of discourage it, right? But also balance with some of the restrictions, because it's also possible that advisors can be anonymous, and if that's the case, then maybe they cannot really respond a lot. But even if they're anonymous, I think there should be some clear process to make sure that we can, cross-check them, right? Because I also don't want Maker to be focusing so much on protecting privacy that we can even like ask about it before we hand out millions. Like I think that from the growth perspective, it won't be so good. At least that's my view. Rafael, do you wanna share something? And of course, like my comments is just like kind of my thoughts. Rafael might have a different idea. And also in reality, our as in like ABC, some of the focus might have to be different, especially if it's restricted. If, for example, we're not allowed to ask some of the questions for some of those advisor applicants, then that's, I would say, part of the restriction that we have to navigate through.
I think we should focus on just getting the best possible people. And if those people are pseudonymous because of like their background, then that's fine. But if they are like known agencies or known people or known influencers or whatever that just have deep experience, then I think like for me this doesn't really factor into the process. Like we want to get the best people, period.
Yeah, I mean, it is true. It's just that I think that even for, let's say, anonymous like members or team, like there's some proof that they can deliver, of course, but just that I also recognize it might be a little bit hard for them to respond or for, let's say, community to ask. So there needs to be balance. But you want to make a good point that there can be like community Q&A as part of the application process. I think it's a good way. And then I think if you just look at other, like especially before as well, like we don't want Q&A section to be where basically like let's say ABC or let's say delegates sabotage them, right? Like the point is not to sabotage, it's more for clarification as well as to ensure that if there are like serious concerns, they can be addressed. So I think the culture probably needs to be changed as well as some of the process. But yes, I can imagine that having that kind of community, like the especially community back and then like focus question and answer. Like even if that means, for example, having questions beforehand so they can prepare, I think might be very helpful, at least especially from the Growth ABC side. Yep. And then I think that's kind of, I mean, at least based on criteria, I think that we probably need to have some more real examples to also see because it's also because we're, at least for the applications that I saw or at least interest, like there are not many advisors that have applied, right? So I think that once we see more, then I think it'll be more clear what kind of criteria will be. But at least for now, I think our basic criteria ideas make sense that we want to kind of be in line with our ABC. So I think now we can go back to process unless others have more questions about the qualification part as well as criteria. I know the criteria part is not 100% clear, but I think that we also came up with some of the ideas that made it more clear. But for other delegates, for delegates and other CVC members, like if you have any questions or wants to have some points that want us to bring up, like feel free to also post.
I think as part of the process, something that's kind of a feedback loop here is that basically how do we make sure that this call for qualified advisors is reaching as many people as it can, right? Like that's also already a growth topic in a way. So I think there's a interesting virtuous loop that can get started once we have the right people to communicate, make us messages, then we can attract better people and so on and so forth.
Yep, that makes sense. All right. So now let's go to some of the process wise, right? Especially I think that this has been some of the questions like how do we have the process so that like facilitators can find those in the first place. Oh, actually, so Bono Republica has a question. If it's a professional marketing or business development company, utilizing their service directly versus having them as advisor, answer. Professional marketing business can also compete as EAs, correct? Yeah, but I think in theory, like any advisor can also compete with EAs, no? Oh, I think maybe he's just writing the notes down. Maybe. Like a business say only if there is work specified in the scopes that they think take one as a EA, I think. Yeah, I mean, this part is kind of interesting as well as like I think we'll have to see. Because like for some parts, I would say that the advisors might not be so fitting for let's say ecosystem actor. Like for example, I saw one. This is not so related to growth. I think it's more probably related to other scopes like there was the one nonprofit agency that was trying to help on how to distribute let's say grants and like philanthropy. Like that probably is my advisor, right? Like I don't think they themselves would be like ecosystem actor. Or for let's say there's a state one, that one like I have to like at least the community have to see more, but that one can be both, right? I think like if they also have experience delivering business development and marketing, like maybe it makes sense that there was a ecosystem actor. Like I don't know, like I think that it's possible for some. I think maybe visuals are also right that maybe for some it's more clear that they're more fitting to be advisors. So I think we have to kind of see from the process. But I think that from the process itself, whether they are like more fitting for either one, I think they can go through the process, of course. And then I think, and Rafael, please correct me if you think I'm wrong, but I think it definitely should be both application-based process as well as something that facilitators can also source, right? So for example, let's say that for growth scope, there's an advisor needed. Well, then I think it's also fair to have different entities or individuals apply to try to be advisor, right? As well as if facilitators also feel like that they have found some ideal candidates, they can also bring forth the applications. I think that both ways kind of makes sense. And of course, we should also make sure that just because facilitators brought it, it's not something that's prioritized. But at the same time, I think in terms of the application process, I think both should be accepted. Because if you only give facilitators to be able to bring forward potential applicants, then isn't that also too narrow? I mean, maybe it's also possible that somebody apply and then they review it and they put it into applicant. That's fine too. But what I'm saying is that maybe the process should be open as well.
Yeah, that there should be like a funnel, I think, and I think that's something that's super important. I mean, at least from my understanding of how growth marketing works, like you try to have a very big surface where people can just come in, and then there's some kind of narrowing down towards the end, where at the end you qualify these people more and more until you come up with the ones that you are actually really passionate about.
Don't know for those. Yeah. Okay. Visuals would say, yeah, there should be both passive and active seeking of participants. Yep, that makes sense. And then out of it, so especially in the old, like I would say old, like before Endgame, there was generally a guideline for framework, right, for applicants. So for example, for core units, they will have a let's say proposal framework they need to put in. And I think it makes sense for advisor. There should be also something like that where it can be something as simple as, for example, their background, like why they want to be advisor. If for example they have a website, like they can put it as well. So I think maybe it makes sense to create like a very simple in a guideline because it's possible that we're going to see many of them apply, and having that kind of guideline at least kind of ensures that there's some basic information that maker community can review, right? Another example, which is a bit different but makes sense, is like, for example, when we used to have collateral, let's say applicant, right, that want to be part of the bookmaker's collateral, like they had to fill out some of those different forms, right, and then had to present to the community. And I think it kind of makes sense that similar to how whether it's ecosystem actors or actors, but like former core units or like collaterals, I think it makes sense to have that kind of guideline where advisors have to follow to kind of put in basic information.
Definitely. I mean,
Yeah.
maybe that's something
Yeah.
that the current growth unit could also like supply a couple of ideas, just like how can we make sure we attract the most qualified candidates?
Yeah, and then I mean, I think although yes, this applies to growth scope, but I think that it also can apply to other scopes as well, right? Because, for example, even if you're talking about like let's say ecosystem or let's say like other types of scopes as well, like having that kind of advisor like framework where they like when they apply they have to fill this out for the committee. I think it's kind of easy way to also ensure that they did at least basic minimum for the committee to kind of check. Now, of course, it can be just back and forth of different questions to try to eventually try to get as many questions as possible. But I think they also make sense to have some kind of that kind of framework where they can apply. So I'm not sure whose role will it be to create like basic guideline about like list of questions. That does sound like something that ecosystem maybe scope like actors might like to do. But I do think that maybe that's needed as well, right? Because especially right now, I saw some of the others that applied, and a lot of times it's just kind of introducing themselves, and that's fine. But we don't really have a framework or guideline. Like for example, I'll definitely also want to see like why they want to, for example, work with Maker or how they can contribute to, let's say, those scopes, right? And I think that those are kind of needed. Also, I just want to think. Okay, so Jenska has been posting, and so I read this. Using tools like Enjuna, we also keep them our listening to user-friendly, intuitive, engaging by any pain points, ABCs, and create a roadmap for intended scope. This will not only grow our community, but also okay. All right. So yeah, this guy was talking about how we need to not only expand but also keep the users, and then also need to do some research regarding like what's missing as well as like areas to improve. Good point. So yeah, the meta also point out. Yep. So it is interesting, right? I guess this is not so related to the process right now. I guess this is more related to growth scope itself, which is about like, okay, so regarding marketing and branding, shouldn't we also do some research to figure it out? I mean, this was something that Mariana also brought it up, right? Which is like, okay, how can we also have a budget to do some market research? And I'll say that like for other entities as well, like whether that's DAOs or whether that's centralized, like it's important to do market research to really understand like our position, right? Like for example, we know that DAI is widely used, but especially if compared to others, like what position are we in? Like are we like have we been winning? Have we been losing? Like yes, DAI supply has been going down, but also the market has been slightly sliding down. Like maybe it's fair to conduct those researches, and maybe it's also fair to set aside some budget to do those. But I think for those, at least from the, I think we probably have to see the proposals for at least the community to review, because I think right now those are just ideas. I don't think there's a specific proposal for those yet. Okay, sorry. So, so going back to the process real quick. So we went from, okay, we have different funnel to get the applicants, and then we talk about potentially having some kind of framework or guideline for them to apply. Rafael, do you want to add more? Like, I know that we're touching on the basics right now, but
No, I think that's fine for me at the moment. I think just from our point of view, what we could add, and I think that Jan Sky also made the point, I think like one of the biggest growth areas in all of crypto at the moment is user experience, which is still like actually pretty horrible. Flipside is doing every 3 months an event where employees get a certain amount of tokens, and we have some people who are not from the crypto world, and it's really like these are all smart people who work in IT, so it's not like your average Joe out there. But even for these people, it's extremely hard to like go through. So I think anything we can find that makes crypto really more usable, and with crypto I mean make up products more usable or better usable than the average thing out there, is very welcome. I think like what Argent did, and I think Growth worked with Argent a bit, was really inspiring, because it's like this is a wallet that's so simple. Everybody who ever used PayPal can use an Argent wallet, basically, right? And so I think like this kind of thinking is also something that I think should be explored.
Yeah, I think that's a good point as well. So I think that in terms of like general idea, like yes, expanding and also reducing the friction, I think has been a big part. I remember that you also mentioned about like, for example, encouraging Maker to go multi-chain, or also like on the idea for Maker chain. I know that we are generally supportive of it because it's also a way to, for example, right now gas fee is quite high. And I also know this because I delegate to delegates who are following us, and each one was costing quite a lot. So even just having like saving it by either going multi-chain or having Maker chain or both, right? I think can be also very helpful. Yeah, Argent was very cool, although they did spend a lot in gas. Actually, that's where most of the initial fundraising went to. It was an interesting moment. All right. So that's that. Do you want to add some more to the process? Because I mean, I know that we don't have to finish the whole thing today, but so I think because we got to how to funnel, how to have a framework, anything to add, Rafael, or we can also like work on it more next time as well, of course.
No, I think that's fine for me. I think like you and I should start crafting some language and then have delegates review it. So I think we kind of start that habit and develop a process around it.
Yeah, sounds good.
So it doesn't become like one big thing at the end of the year, of the quarter. Sorry.
Yeah, I just realized that actually the quarter is ending soon. No, it's like May, so we're soon in June, right? So end of June is the end of quarter.
Yeah. It's coming up much faster than I'm comfortable with, actually.
I can't believe that we're getting midterms in our 30s and 40s. Okay, makes sense. All right, so that's that. Yeah, actually, so for advisor, I had some other questions. So yep. So I actually just want to touch on it. I know that we're kind of circling around the topic. So sorry about that in terms of the process. But actually, I wrote down some of the criteria questions, especially for advisor. I know that we talk about like the question about advisor versus sub versus equals an actor. But there was also a question about like, like should we do like Web3 focus or should it be general, right? Because it's also important that they understand the industry, but a lot of I would say potential consultants that we have talked about, they tend to not really understand crypto well, especially like DAO and DeFi. So I just want to kind of mention that at least like it's my belief that we should focus on ones that know about the industry well, because it's not the name itself that's important, at least from the like my personal perspective. on what is like from the Growth ABC. It's more like who can deliver, right? Like sure, they might, for example, be in only business for 1 year, but have delivered amazingly and can also deliver amazing for us. And for Maker, I think that's better than, for example, a consulting company that has been there for 200 years that we have to explain what is blockchain and Bitcoin in the first place, right? So just want to kind of mention that again. All right. So I think that in terms of some of the advisor topics, we have made progress. And I think the first scope we have. Okay, so I knew I knew that there will be questions like that. So we have also touched on growth scope. So I think that we can maybe spend some of the time to talk about some of the ongoing polls. Give me a second. I have to. So I had a few reach out to me about it as well, but because especially like for me, like I'm not a delegate anymore, so I cannot really follow all the votings that are happening. Nor is it kind of expected, unless I'm mistaken. So if there's, for example, voting that you guys or girls are very curious about like our thoughts, please let us know, and then we can try to review it. Ideally before ABC call, so we can give more thoughts to it. But we'll try what we can. All right, so it's 1,000, right? All right, let's see. All right, so identification for MIT proposals. Yeah. It's a list of the. Okay, I think the easier part for maybe since it's in a Bona replica dimension then. Okay. Okay, I think maybe it's easier to kind of just write about like what are some parts that you believe that you want us to give clarification on, because yeah, it seems to be very it is expensive voting. Like also ideally this was asked before, so we can maybe have okay, but this is really long. All right. Any specific parts that you want us to review right now and then give some comments? Like, so if there's any points that you feel like, okay, this is clearly against what's Growth ABC stand for, or if you believe, okay, I think this is probably part where it aligns with Growth ABC, like, right? Maybe we can take this combo ASIC. It is possible, and that actually we do have the Growth ABC offline platform. I don't know whether you guys just saw it, but we can definitely use that as well. And then we might need to, because we're almost reaching our time and it's very expensive. Okay, paper says it will remove most delegates, encourage other delegates to do the same. For points in the subspec. Okay. So I know code. So code 9. I know that you write those, but I don't think I subscribe to it yet. But is there also like just document version that I can look at it, or we can look at it? What action items should ADs that follow these ABCs take away from this meeting? Are you vigilant? Are you talking about like action items as in like based on scope or based on advisor? Because for ABC calls, I believe the focus is on the scope, right? And then for others, it's about business strategy, right? Maybe you can kind of share more on like what you mean by action item, like what we want them to vote. Or maybe Rafael, maybe you can help more on business in the questions, because
so I think like what should be done until next week. So I think if you could serve as, maybe just drop the links in Discord, any good processes and criteria you have seen for advisory councils, that would be very helpful. And regarding growth, I think what would be super interesting is maybe some examples of successful rebrandings, so we can see like what the process is there, and then just maybe distill some criteria out of that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that we have discussed many different ideas, but I think it can help in many different ways, right? Because for especially growth scope, we'll talk about like, yes, some of the maybe case studies, as well as like if you can also figure out like whether there can be a way to do some market research for maker. I think that'll be also kind of helpful, but maybe that's not really within delegates role. That's more for like the scope itself, which is also a bit tricky. In terms of related advisor, yeah, I mean, as Rafael said, like, because we have kind of at least shared like what we as Growth ABC is looking for in potential candidates. So maybe it's also possible that the delegates can suggest. Yes, yes, I was gonna to mention that as well. Yep. So going back to it real quickly, it's like yes. So anything that you can recommend for those, like, just let us know. And yes, we have the offline like the platform, so you can post there. You can also use the Discord as well. I think we have, at least Rafa and I have talked about like both the pros and cons. So use what you think is better. In terms of the other point about the preparation for the next weeks, covering next goal or the physical resilience. I think that this one is quite interesting because one of the delegate following us, especially, has been very focusing on some of the privacy aspect and others, and I know the others also have been talking about it. So I think from our side, we might maybe prepare like a guest speaker, or even maybe ask one of the delegates who know about this side to give kind of overview. They can just do impact text or like PowerPoint or others. Maybe it's also possible. But for the delegates to prepare, will be also about like I mean, we'll be posting agenda before the meeting, like this week, so that they can think about. Paper say overview of which parts, choose our own. Oh, so this was talking about like a physical resilience, like I mean, we can try to coordinate, especially for those who want to present PowerPoint. Of course, you don't have to speak. It can be like text-based in a PowerPoint on. But I know that delegates also have been spending quite a lot of time and resources into like how to help with it. So maybe it's also possible to have it something that. Okay, so I think maybe I confused with other scope. And this next scope pretty much only contains the legal defense fund and fund for legal research. Okay, interesting. So I think that's, yeah, but I mean, yeah, thanks, Vigilant, to bring it up. But I think that similar to this time, I think we'll just, Rafael, I'll work on the agenda and present it before the meeting. I think it's a little premature for us to give agenda like today for next week. I mean, we probably can. I think it's better also for us to think about it.
Yeah, I mean, what I was also thinking about is that, I mean, we can work on an agenda and present it, and then the rest of the conversation can happen async in a way. Then we can have like basically quite short like input talks, or these kind of things where we just do a short presentation, and then and like these action items, and then delegates can follow up on our general line of thought and what we are asking. Could be a way to do it.
Yeah, I think that I mean, unless delegates really like unless delegates have a very strong opinion, like I think at least the current system of sharing the agenda a day or so before the meeting is okay, and also at least for me and Rafael is doable. I think trying to do it a week before, although maybe we can get into the habit of it, as for now it's not too easy. But of course, like we also try to adjust to what can help delegates the most. But I just want to say that like at least for now, like this has been kind of our process. But yes, so, we'll definitely share some agendas, before the call. So so thank you for bringing it up. All right, so I think that we have still some discussions regarding the guidance on the poll. I see Jen Sky has brought up interesting points that delegates use CVCs to inform your decisions on specific votes, relying too heavily on guidance risks losing sight of values and principles in Atlas. Instead, understand ABCs and align with our mission and values for informed decisions that achieve our goals. And Bona Luca said this allows for bias and work against the ethos for aligned conservatives. We don't say how delegates should think about voting is clarified well in the new Atlas, but that is not ratified yet. Interesting points. And yes, I think that since we are running out of time, let's talk more on either Discord or off-chain platform. I think that for this off-chain platform might be better because it's longer form, but let's discuss. All right. Rafael, anything else that we missed or topics to talk about?
No, thanks a lot.
All right.
All the best, and then see you all next week.
All right, sounds good. Well, thank you all for coming, and then see you next week.